never seen.
Yo, what's up guys? Bill here for Classic Rock and Metal Review. Time for another episode of Love You Long Time. This one takes a good deep look at Twisted Sister's second album from 1983, You Can't Stop Rock and Roll. Do a brief history of the band. I'll give you my history with this album. And it's another one I haven't heard since the 80s. So, used to like it. It was definitely an 8, maybe an 8.5, somewhere in there. And definitely something that I didn't hear much, even though I owned it. Always one of those that, every time I did play it, man, I need to play this more. And next thing you know, it's 6 months later and I still haven't heard it again. So, go through this whole thing song by song. Let you know if it's still an 8 out of 10, at least. I think this is the 8th episode of Love You Long Time. There's been 2 thumbs downs, I think 5 thumbs up. A couple of those, though, actually better than I remembered. So it can really go either way, Pretty cool stuff. Guys, it's not even 6 a.m. It's got to be coffee. Speaking of which, I'm a 1 cup a day person. Maybe a half a cup later on if I need a little jolt. And lately, so it's French roast, all right? Something serious. And lately, it's been heavy cream in here, all right? Half and half ran out. Some heavy cream was laying around. You know what? Life's too short. Go for the cream. That's all I'm going to say. All right, if you're new to the channel, the whole purpose of this episode, how it came about, give you a little history of me, basically. But my collecting began in 1981. And within a couple years, I had hundreds of albums and tapes. But I did a big purge in the late 80s. A really total overreaction. I was getting out of metal. I was getting sick of metal. It was really becoming a lot of bullshit, honestly. Getting into classic rock and sold off a lot of my metal albums. I still have a few, but not many. And then probably about 6 or 8 years ago at this point, also sold off about 400 or 500 cassettes, albums, on tape. And honestly, I really hadn't played most of them in decades. I stopped, I had CDs, I still had vinyl. Tapes were just taking up space. So, despite having over 3,000 albums today, probably 3,500, there's still hundreds of albums that I used to have that I still don't have. It's really I'm really wondering how many albums I did have back in the 80s. It must have been 1,000, at least. I feel like I get shit back that I used to have constantly, and I still have so much more to still get back. My collecting, by the way, slowed to a crawl in the 90s. Just got other interests and still bought some stuff, just nothing like I used to and nothing like I do now. So, like I said, still recouping lots of things. So the whole point of the episode was, I think I got the idea listening to Under Lock and Key by Doc a year or two ago, had this vision in my head of what it was like. I really thought it was great back then. And that one was a thumbs down. It just wasn't. And, there were things about it I'd forgotten that I liked and things about it that I thought were great that weren't anymore. So it just makes an interesting sort of reinvestigation kind of thing. So let's get started with Twisted Sister. Simple, cool, classic cover. Could be better, I guess, but it just projects hard rock, metal, despite the pink. These guys formed in 1972. There's another band older than you think. Originally called Silver Star. They're in New Jersey. They relocate to Long Island, New York at some point in the mid-70s. Multiple lineup changes, as you can imagine, before settling on their classic lineup in 1982. J.J. French, Eddie Ojeda on guitars, Dee Snider's your vocalist, Mark the Animal Mendoza on bass, and drummer A.J. Perot. By the early 80s, even by the late 70s, early 80s, they have a huge local following. So much so that they're playing theaters in front of thousands of people locally. Kind of an unusual situation where basically touring outside their own area really didn't make much sense. They would lose money trying to tour the country. So they just kept it local, which probably in a way hurt them because their name wasn't getting out there as much. So some attempts at touring, like I said, low attendance, cost the money to tour. No record contract, no album yet, and only demos to sell. So that none of that helped spread the word for the band. So the out of the area crowds had nothing to go on, selling demos at the shows kind of thing. So all that would finally change on the strength of the song Under the Blade charted on metal charts in the UK as a demo, up against albums and stuff. So Under the Blade, title track of what would eventually be their debut, which came out in '82 on Secret Records. Produced by UFO's Pete Way, new wave of British heavy metal influence, but raw sound. And with this look, kind of branded them, I don't even know if this was a term until these guys, glam metal, maybe it was. They were definitely slotted into that. Which brings us to You Can't Stop Rock and Roll. So these guys, on the strength of the Under the Blade album and all the noise they're making, get signed to Atlantic Records for this guy for 1983. Now this time they bring in a producer, or Atlantic does, Stuart Epps, who actually worked with Elton John, Led Zeppelin, Bad Company, but also Barry White, among a bunch of others. Kiki D. So he's spread throughout the pop world, rock world. This guy gets released in the UK in April of '83, and not until June of '83 for the United States. One of the best documentaries, rockumentaries you want to ever see, We Are Twisted Effin' Sister, which came out in 2016. Man, that is awesome. Talk about thorough, and it keeps your attention the whole time. At least it did for me, but I do tend to love these things, I have to admit. 2 hours and 16 minutes long. And it only covers the beginnings of the band up till this album. They mention Stay Hungry, a little bit at the very, very end. But it's mostly the whole history of the band leading up until this era. So, man, I can't recommend that enough. I'm sure it's probably streaming. I don't own it. I only streamed it once myself. And, man, it's just great. And I'm hoping there's eventually a part 2 to get to '84 and beyond, because it's just waiting to be made, I want to watch that again soon, actually. It's thorough. It's never boring, like I said. So my history with these guys, right around 1983, is when I heard the title track off of this guy on Metal Shop. And they would play it every so often, You heard it like once every month or 6 weeks or so. Maybe some others off of here too, to be honest with you. But the one that just stood out for sure was You Can't Stop Rock and Roll. Heard it 3 or 4 times over maybe a 3 or 4 month period. So it wasn't enough to have me run out and get this album like right away or anything. But every time you heard it, it kind of grew on you a little more. So I would say I probably started hearing that title track in '83. But I might not have got this until '84. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure which one I owned first, this or Stay Hungry. But they were right around the same time. I got both, to be honest. Definitely in '84. Now, this is one of these albums, and there are some out there. Oz, Fire in the Brain, that was another Love You Long Time. That was one that fits this description I'm about to give you. Icon, I think it was their first album from '84, maybe it was '85. Albums I liked a lot when I listened to them, and for some reason just didn't find myself putting them on that much. This would definitely fit in that category. Because every time I played it, I'm like, wow, this is really good. I need to play this more. And next thing you know, it's 6 months later, 8 months later. I feel like I only played this album 3 times back in the day. And like I said, every time I did, it's like, what the hell am I not playing this more for? So what's my memory of the quality of this album? I'd say it was consistently really good. Maybe a little heavier than Stay Hungry. Maybe not as heavy as Under the Blade, which I also had around the same time. Mostly, I think, probably thinking about that image of that album cover. All black, just projected heavier than Stay Hungry, with Stay Hungry being all on the radio and everything. Videos, all that popularity. If there was any critique that I had about it, was that there were very few standout songs. I don't really remember these songs at all, honestly, other than the title track, So that's my '80s recollection of owning this record. So let's go track by track. Picked it up a few months back. It got played right away. It's been played like once every couple of weeks since then. I think I've heard it 4 times. I just heard it a few days ago for the 4th time, which is probably as much as I ever listened to it back in the day, honestly. So here's the version I got. Atlantic Records. You know, it looks like the basic version from the US and I think UK, you know. I already showed you that, but there you go one more time. Pretty cool little book. You know, got all the lyrics in there. I think that's the album. That was in the album sleeve, if I remember right. All right, got your Twisted Sister band fan club info in there. Play it loud, mother. And I think this was the opposite side of the sleeve. I don't remember exactly, but I definitely had it on vinyl, which I also had Under the Blade on vinyl. Man, don't even tell me how freaking stupid I was getting rid of all that stuff. All right, let's get into the album. First song, The Kids Are Back. Solid tune, melodic, you know, towing the line between just heavy rock and heavy metal, honestly. Real driving rhythm. The bass on this thing is great, on this whole album pretty much. Now, some songs are a little more powerful bass than others in terms of the sort of production or the levels, I guess you'd say. But man, Kids Are Back, really good song. Pretty much in line with what I remember about this album overall, you know. Solid, heavy rocker, not trying to do too much, 3 minutes, 16 seconds. Really good. Actually, you know, like I said, I don't remember most of these songs. This one's great. I love Kids Are Back. Song number 2, Like a Knife in the Back. Catchy verses and choruses, you know, just like the first song. Towing the line between metal and rock. You know, the guitars are more hard rock than metal during the verses. And then power chords during the chorus, they seem to be a little more distorted, a little heavier. But again, really good tune. And I have to say I love this one too. This is another really good one. Kids Are Back I think is a little better. But Like a Knife in the Back's pretty damn cool too. Ride to Live, Live to Ride. Guys, I hate to repeat myself, but this is pretty much the same story, you know? This one, really deep bass sounding. And I love deep bass. Marco Mendoza sounds great backing up these guitars because these guitars aren't, you know, super distorted. We're not talking Metallica level, Judas Priest level distorted metal guitars. They're more like an AC/DC style guitar. Terms of the tone, you know, not super distorted. So that thick ass bass really backs it up nice and beefs it up nice. Probably takes it from rock to metal, really, the bass. At least on this song, Ride to Live, Live to Ride. I think it's a really good song. Another good one. This one's about as good as Like a Knife in the Back, which I thought was really good too. And let's put it this way. I'm in my car and I have, my car stereo has bass boost or something, whatever they call it. And I have to turn the bass boost off. The bass is so thundering on this tune. So I'm fine with that. It still sounds heavy even with that off. I Am On Me, 4th song in. I don't recall this song really at all. And definitely don't recall liking it more than the others back in the day. But I have to tell you, this tune was in my head for weeks. It's still kind of in my head. Going back to when I first listened to this thing about 6 weeks ago. Back in late November, mid-November, whenever it was. And honestly, the verse is so melodic, you know. It really almost reminds me of like a 60s pop song, you know, by like a chick band, not even like a rock song. I don't even know who I'm thinking of. It just has such a catchy, almost poppy melody, you know, that I just really love it though. It's really catchy and I really don't have any really good reason. Now, of course, the chorus is heavier. It gets heavy at the chorus. And I love the chorus too. But the whole song's just great, man. I love this one, all right? So far, I got a couple favorites off of this. And so far, we're looking good to head towards an 8 out of 10. Now, Power and the Glory. It's solid. It's good. It's not as great as anything in front of it to me, all right? Nice sort of hook kind of riff after the title at the chorus. But Power and the Glory, it's good. It's just not as good as any of the other 4 in front of it for me. We're Gonna Make It. I would say another favorite. This one's heavier. Still melodic, still catchy, still some good guitar hooks in here at the chorus again. So these guys really got a formula going on so far in this album. and it's working for me. Number 7, we start to slow down a little bit in terms of greatness. I think I've had enough. It's okay, but it's definitely my least favorite so far in the style of everything up until this point. Guitars that are hard rock, not so much metal, but you still have that thick bottom back end going on with the bass and drums. But it's in line with everything else so far in the record. Just doesn't pull me in the way everything else has so far. Song number 8, I'll Take You Alive. Just 3 minutes on this guy. Fastest thing on here so far. Solid heavy rocker, another decent one. Doesn't overwhelm me, not super catchy, but it's okay, not bad. Now, they have sort of this power ballad, I guess you could call it, kind of thing. You're Not Alone, Suzette's song. It's got, it's a nice change of pace, I guess. This album's so consistently of one style all the way through up until this point. I kind of remember this a little bit, because, man, anything ballady stood right out when you were 14 years old and listening to a metal record, right? Can't have any wimpy songs on it. It was like an automatic strike. So that was basically how we used to describe albums to each other. Does it have anything wimpy on it, So amateurish. So that's not a problem with me at all, but the whole song's just not great. It's okay. It's not a killer, but the big chorusy power ballad kind of thing. It can work, like Dawkins Alone Again is amazing. But this one I think is just okay. It's not bad, it's just I think my least favorite on the record. And finally, the title track, Can't Stop Rock and Roll. I mean, how can you go wrong with this song? Now this, like I said, the only song I really recalled. I think I actually recall liking it more back in the day than I do now. I think I have several other songs on this record that I like more than this title track. Even though this was the one thing I could definitely say I loved back in the day, the rest of the album couldn't tell you much about, couldn't remember much about. So hearing it on Metal Shop, maybe that was just so much cooler than owning it. I don't know. Slight letdown in some sort of way, yet it's still a really good song. So in closing, I think my memories of this album are completely accurate and yet completely wrong at the same time. So what was I wrong about? Thinking that it was heavier than Stay Hungry. Now, I haven't heard Stay Hungry a lot, but I did hear it a few years ago, and that album's heavy, I'm not going to sit here and say it's not. Thinking that this had less commercial potential than Stay Hungry, I think that's wrong. This album, like I said, it's more of a heavy rock. I think it's totally commercially accessible, I don't know why it didn't get any more airplay. I don't even know. Who knows? The image, whatever. There wasn't tons of metal on the radio in Philadelphia. So, Metal Shop only for this product. But it definitely had commercial potential. Not as heavy as Stay Hungry. So, wrong about that too. It's definitely as melodic. Might even be more so than Stay Hungry. Lack of standouts. That's one of the things I was again wrong about. I've got 4 or 5 standouts on this album after these 3 or 4 listens the past few weeks. So what was I right about? It's consistently good all the way through. That's true. And I was also right about the fact that I used to say to myself, I need to play this more. Because had I think I would have really been into it a little more. And most importantly, it's a thumbs up, and it's definitely an 8 out of 10. I would probably go 8.4 on this record. 8.3, somewhere in there. It's just lives up to expectations and exceeds it, honestly. I think there's been 1 or 2 other records that we've done on Love You Long Time that have exceeded the memory. This will be one of them. Thumbs up. No lack of standouts anymore. Kids Are Back's awesome. Like a Knife in the Back's good. I'm Me, total favorite there. We're Gonna Make It, also killer, and title track's still really good. So 4 or 5 standouts at this point. Guys, next up for Love You Long Time, Sabotage, Power of the Night. Man, I loved this album back in the day. I played this a bunch of times. This was going to be a great one because, man, this has got to live up to a 9 out of 10. I used to think this album was almost perfection. And I don't think I knew anybody into Sabotage, Heard them a little on Metal Shop, for probably the title track of this. Ran out and got this and used to love it. Used to have it on vinyl. That's long gone. Purged like the fool I am. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this one. Check out what's coming. Got a new schedule. I'm going to be working my ass off and doing shit like I'm doing right now. Filming it before I go to work for 12 hours. What dedication. All right, guys, everyone have a good day. Drink strong coffee. Listen to Sabbath. Listen to Twisted Sister. See yous.